Grand Hood Rising, Kings and Queens, Trap Witch here in Atlanta, Georgia, coming to bring you a new moon in Gemini reading. It is Gemini season. You know, Geminis really get a bad reputation for being an acquired taste of crazy, but I love Geminis. You know, Johnny Depp, Naomi Campbell, Princess Nokia. You know, unfortunately, we have extreme cases like Donald Trump. We have people like Kanye, but you know, there's a method to the madness of Gemini, and there is such a beauty in the space of duality. I always like to say that, you know, the other twin, it's not the good twin and the bad twin, it's the good twin and the other twin. And I've found in the past few days, or about a week or so as we've gone into Gemini season, I've been speaking a lot on my page. If you don't follow me, The Trap Witch on Instagram, TheTrapWitch. I've been talking a lot about moving from dark feminine templates into divine feminine. And for me, I used to operate really heavily out of my shadow. And, you know, if you go back down my page in 2018, last year, I really gave big ups to the shadow side, because my shadow was my ride or die that really was pushing and helping me thrive, you know, in my business, in my life, in a lot of things. But at some point, we can get a little reckless and we can allow the shadow to take over the wheel too much. And when we operate in that shadow too heavily, especially if we're using it for creation, and sometimes, you know, now, like I said, we're clearing out dark feminine templates, we gotta ascend higher, and there's only so much we can use of that for the survival mode. So for me, I went through an initiation the end of April. I crowned Oshun in the Lukumi Santeria tradition. My father's Chango. So, you know, I am someone who has both the masculine and feminine archetype within even my parentals of the religion. We have the epitome of the divine masculine and the epitome of the divine feminine. And I myself, for a long time in my journey, were operating out of what I would call the negative stereotypes of those two orishas, or those two energies and embodiments. You know, I really don't like to see on Instagram pages that make really negative stereotypical memes about these energies, because if we continue to perpetuate the negative stereotypes of those energies, we stay in those cycles, because for so long people survive and thrive in that side that they don't know how to balance things out. So it's always funny to me too, even with duality, as I'm talking about Oshun and I'm talking about Chango, you know, people say it's hard for them to coexist together, but it's because a lot of times, like we're saying, if we have too much of the toxicity of masculinity, or we have too much of the toxicity of feminine energy, then of course there's not a balance, because one is trying to overpower or trying to control the other. So in love, we have to understand it's a surrender. And so Gemini season, I'm feeling a lot of surrender. I'm feeling a lot of death. I'm feeling a lot of people coming out of a shedding. It's like a snake that's coming out the last shedding, and it literally comes off and has a brand new coat. But you have to shed some of these things from previous seasons that just no longer serve you, and bring yourself back into a divine balance, because that's what, I mean, Gemini season, the twin season, the duality and the balance, the divine twins. Okay. Gemini, what do I have Gemini on my chart? My Chiron is actually in Gemini. I forget what house it's in. I think it's like in the 11th house or something like that. I'm just getting familiar with astrology, but I don't sweat it too hard. But yeah, my Chiron is in, or Chiron, however you say, is in Gemini. So that's the only Gemini that I actually have on my chart. But I'm not going to rant too much. It's so funny. Look at this, right? I have the cards that I'm going to be using for the reading, and literally they were just sitting face up, and this is on the bottom. Is that not a sign for Gemini season, or what? The Marassa, the divine twins. Ashe to the spirits. Very present today. Like I said, I'm the Trap Witch. For those of you who are new, I'm an intercessory healer. I call myself was calling myself more of a shadow worker before, but I do like to consider myself a bridge, or someone who helps people build their bridges over obstacles, over boundaries throughout their life, trying to get from these places of toxicity, of the negative, of the shadow, and transmuting it into power. All pain that we have in our life can be transmuted into some sort of power if we feel like we have the capability to do so. So with balancing these energies out, so we're going to use this as an example. You know, there's two of them, there's three jars. When our divine energies are in balance, we reproduce. So when the feminine and the masculine can work together, that can balance you out, 1 + 1 will equal 3. So right now, a lot of us, as we're going through, like I said, we're trying to balance those energies out. And sometimes why we're not reproducing is because something is off balance. A lot of times people don't understand, you know, even when people are trying to conceive, when people are trying to carry through pregnancy and give birth, sometimes it's not her, it might be him. Sometimes it's not him, it might be her. It might be both. And if there are stagnant energies, stagnated things that are blocking DNA, there's a reason why sometimes things don't come through. And I'm going to shout out Carolyn Kundalini, who I've been watching for about a year as I've been going through my own, you know, personal work. A lot of us right now are getting DNA upgrades as we're going from 3D to 5D. We're getting majorly upgraded, and we are being dragged and being forced to heal things at an accelerated rate, a lot faster than in yesteryear that we would have had the time to do so. It's like, get with the fucking picture or get left out of it as we're going forward. 2020 is gonna be a real fucking year, okay? A lot of us that have been doing the work, we're gonna find maybe, you know, going into it, it's gonna feel okay. But those who are still course correcting might feel like, oh my God, they're going through living hell right now. I myself, I read this thing the other day that made so much sense, because there was a symbol that came to me at the beginning of my awakening in my journey. It's the Lamed symbol. It's actually what I have tattooed here. And I was reading this write-up about it, and it was so fucking deep. And I was like, wow. But one of the most beautiful things it said was that sometimes we go through 9 levels of hell before we really get to the place of ascension that we need to go through. So in order to ascend, we must descend, right? It's like, as we came through the birth portal or the birth canal, right? We descended, we came back down. And in order to remember of which we came from, the higher power, the higher energy, we have to go through these levels of hell, right? The earth is a really beautiful place, but this is where the negative energies are rampant, right? So we have to go through levels of obstacles and turmoil and pain and all of this shit, right? We're born with a clean slate, and then we learn all of these things that cause us anxiety, cause us stress, cause us whatever the fuck have you, before we can get to this place of real power within ourselves and finding purpose and finding the reasons why we were here, and leaning into everything that allows us to become that. So if you're interested in working with me, go to www.thetrapwitch.com, book a session. I'll usually get back to you within, 2 days. Now it's been a little bit longer, 3 to 5 days. Just be patient with me. It's never longer than usually 5 days. And I'll schedule you. I can work with you from anywhere. I will say that I am someone, like I said, I'm here to shed truth, be authentic, be real with you. I'm not here to baby you through it. I'm here to help you want to help yourself produce real results for this ascension and for your path to really come into a place of understanding of self. And sometimes we just need somebody to hold the mirror up and say, here, hey, you got a little something on your face, girlfriend. You got a little something on your teeth, friend, and doing it in the most loving but honest, authentic way. If that's something you're wanting to do with anything you have going on in your life right now, feel free. I would love to work with you and see what we can do. So I'm going to go ahead and start the reading. We're going to be reading from the Sally Ann Glassman New Orleans Voodoo deck. I'm going to pull a few cards from here. I'm going to see what Spirit says about working with the current energy we have for the new moon in Gemini. And then I'll pull some clarity cards from whatever decks I have here. I think I have like Archangel deck, Goddess deck, whatever have you. Let's just see what the message is for this time and what we should be knowing about using this energy to the utmost of our capacity so we can do good by ourselves, okay? All right. And I encourage you to get a notebook, write some stuff down. It might be good for you to remember later. If you feel compelled to share it with me, tag me on Instagram, share it to your story, share it to your page, and let me know what stuck with you and stuck out the most, okay? All right. Spirit, I call you in on behalf of the collective. I ask for the highest good of all those involved with harm to none. I ask for clarity. I ask for clear perception. I ask Elegua to open the roads to clear, precise messages. At this time, what is it subconsciously, below the surface, beyond the veil, that can facilitate in the collective's highest good? Allow them to overcome barriers, obstacles of the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual kind, and allow them to move past them gracefully in their best interest with the highest capacity of working in their positive energies, the energy that is divine, the energy that is moving away from the darkness and from the shadow and into the transmutation, the alchemy of the high priestess and everything that is taking what we need to know beyond the veil, deeper, and using it to bring things to the surface and making our existence for ourselves and for others the best it can possibly be. I call on my spirit guides, my Agun, my ancestors, ascended masters, archangels of benevolence, any benevolent energy that wishes to assist only. And we ask, what do we need to know for the new moon in Gemini this June? I think it's 3rd or 4th, this upcoming Monday, to allow us to use this energy to the utmost of our potential. Ashe. All right. Uno, dos, tres, 1, 2, 3. 4. Let's do 5 cards. All right. Oh, getting stiff already. All right. First word I hear is intentional. We have to be intentional about where we're going and the things that we want to move past, because it's easy to get stuck on a level. It's so funny because I feel like this is just reiterating what I said, and what I'm hearing too also is the word plateau. A lot of us start to get to this place where our energy and our fire and our passions begin to run a little low because we plateau, okay? And there comes a time where we have to plateau because things have to be shaken up, things have to be discarded. We have to almost work from a place of digging a little deeper. Is that the words digging a little deeper? Let's pull some clarity. What cards do I want to use? I'll use this one. Okay. 2, 3. Okay. I feel like a lot of this is refining your energy and being really, really intentional about it, because there's 2 images that stick out the most to me in this spread. One is in the initial pull, which is the card Ochosi, and one of the clarity cards that I just pulled, which is the Maiden Clarity. We got 2 arrows in there, okay? So the first card that I pulled was the Petra Ungar card, which was reverse. Man who is beating a drum with a lot of fire, okay? Fire, passion. Clarity card under it, Mother Perception. Clamshell. Okay, a lot of people don't know that pearls that are created from oysters, clams, whatever have you, they are created from irritations. And a lot of us have to get to the point where we get so irritated, where we get so irritable that to the point where our passions are running low and we're like this, right? It's like we're, I'm seeing, how do I word it? When your brakes are getting down, like you're grinding your brakes when your brakes have gone a little too far down to the metal and they're gear on gear. Sometimes we have to get to the point of being metal on metal, grinding our gears to realize that there's something better that can come of this, but we have to be really, intentional about that time, because if we're not intentional, then we can grind our gears to the point where then it becomes dangerous. And I really think that right now we're at a time where we want to be sure where we're putting our irritations. Does that even make sense? I feel like I'm talking in circles. It's okay. It's okay to be irritable. It's okay to be grinding to the point where you're like gear on gear. It's fine. But you gotta make sure that you take care of it and you focus on what you're wanting to do with those irritations and this point now. Because if you don't, you're going to slide. You're going to not be able to stop and you're going to regress, if that makes sense. I say because Ochosi, right? Ochosi is an Orisha. He's a healer. He has a lot to do with justice. And there's, the story of Ochosi is that he never misses his mark, okay? Ochosi never misses his mark wherever he points his intentions, as long as he has good intentions, okay? Even if he was to point his arrow at something, right? He has to make sure it's in the right place, because there was a story where Ochosi's mom, long story short, picked up some shit he left on the ground, and he didn't know his mama picked it up. And then he came back and he was like, I'm gonna fuck up whoever took my shit. And he pointed his arrow to the sky, and Ochosi's arrow hit, and it hit his mama. And so when he went and he looked and he saw that it had hit her, he was like, oh my God, did I really hit my mama and kill her all out of my impulse and my irritation and my aggressiveness? Okay, so the clarity card I pull underneath is delight, and then next to it is Elekwa, okay? Elekwa is an Orisha who is the master of the crossroads. He is our consciousness, okay? He is who allows us to sometimes be tested and ask ourselves questions, okay? And what I feel about, look at the delight card. There's an eye right here, right? Where your third eye is. But what's beautiful about it is that it's turned vertically and it looks like a yoni to me. And look at the flower at the top. There's now a capacity for you to take your thoughts, irritations, and create better intentions and almost give birth and bloom through them. But first you have to ask yourself, what are the things that are irritating you, causing you heartache, causing you to grind your brakes, metal on metal, to the point where if you now do not be careful, you can descend. Because I got 3 of Swords, which is the Gede card here, this 3 of Swords reverse. And then we have this Ascension card reverse. And the last full moon, we got this card and it was reverse. So I feel like from the last full moon to now this new moon, this rough 2-week period, a lot of y'all, if you felt like you've been grinding, metal on metal, irritated, just a lot of things that are being buried, it's in order for you to really focus your clarity on producing a little bit more. What I loved at the beginning of this, when those Marassa, the Divine Twins card was coming up, right? What I loved about that was that, like I said, if one of those energies is off, then what you produce for yourself is going to be off. So right now you have to ask yourself, within your energies, within your masculine energy, within your feminine energy, which one is off? Is one off? Is both off? What is causing you to grind your gears, get to the point where your energy is running low, and to the point where if you're not careful, you're going to crash? I'm just going to go ahead and say I wrote a post yesterday about the dark feminine, okay? Up until my initiation in April, I was getting to the point, although I was getting rid of a lot of it, I was still getting to the point where I was carrying a lot of dark feminine energy. And even up to the day that they crowned me, it was like, literally that night, I felt like a boiling pot. You know, a pot with the lid on it, where everything's just, and it felt like my top was gonna blow. I literally felt like if you could think about the dark side of this image. But afterwards, it was like this softness came over, and it was like the divine feminine took over me, as opposed to operating in the dark, because I was just really still in a lot of toxic emotions. And it was like, if you don't stop in this dark template, in this place of your feminine energy that causes you just this irritability, you're going to grind your gears to the point to where you descend. So I wrote a post yesterday, you know, a year ago to now this year, I can literally look at myself and see a physical difference in my aura and in the energy. And I compared it to, and this is going to be a spoiler, so you might want to plug your ears or skip, because people take this shit so fucking seriously. But I don't really watch Game of Thrones, but I really was fascinated with the character, you know, of Khaleesi, and I wanted to watch the last episode, and I wrote a post about what happened to her on the last episode, where her dark feminine templates overtook her to the point of her demise. And I was this close in the past year to getting to that point. And a lot of us, if you don't want to descend, if you don't want to be put in the dirt early, if you don't want to get yourself killed, because operating in these dark templates will kill you if you don't take control of them and not let them control you. How are you going to take these irritations, these things that bother you, these heartaches, anything, right? And how are you going to be mindful? Because I'm hearing the word mindful. How are you going to be mindful of how you take these things, bury and discard what is no longer of use, and really refocus your clarity to give birth to new delight? Are you going to go to the point of disaster? Or do you want to be able to delight in that you've discarded what you don't need and not descend, but ascend to the new level? Let's pull a card here. Sekhmet, be strong. You're stronger than you think you are, and your strength assures a happy outcome. Aha. This is the thing. Strength in this case, for me, is not aggressive. It's very much being able to have the strength to surrender and not put up more resistance. A lot of people think that surrender, in some cases, is a sign of weakness. Sometimes people think throwing up the white flag, okay? Sometimes throwing up the white flag means you're willing to lose. But is it because you're operating in a place of lack? Sometimes the reason why we're not willing to surrender is because we fear the loss of what comes when we let down resistance. And not everything that you throw up the white flag to and surrender to in light is going to be a loss. It's going to be a gain. Because a lot of us that are not taking these irritations and being intentional and refocusing, especially our mind and what we need to be clear on, you will allow your resistance to grind through so much and cause you to crash. What did I say before? Sometimes your resistance, the resistance is just going to go like this to the point where you're going to crash and you're going to descend. Some of the things that you are so stubborn, it's not about strength in the matter, it's being stubborn. Some of the things you're being so stubborn about are the things that are going to cause you to grind through and break and crash. Why? Why would you want to do that? Let's pull another on top of that. Counselor. Archangel Azrael, you are a natural counselor and many people benefit from your guidance and reassurance. You got to learn how to hold counsel with yourself. If you don't know how to hold counsel with yourself, hire somebody that you can get counsel with, right? For example, like I said, if you're getting to the point where your brakes are grinding and you're down to the metal, you need to go to the mechanic, right? So those of you who don't know how to work on a car, you take your shit to the mechanic. So if you're somebody who is not sitting down and looking at yourself and looking how the mechanics of yourself and how you're operating are working, allow yourself to take, right? Because a lot of people are stubborn too, right? A lot of people are stubborn in the sense where they will try to ignore the grinding of the brakes. They're trying to ignore it. They're like, oh, it's not so bad right now. They're resisting for whatever reason to the point where they end up paying more for it in the long term had they just let down their resistance, surrendered, and seek the help, seek the counsel, seek the expertise that they need. Sometimes the things that you need to move past in order to move forward, you are going to have to surrender, just give in, pop the hood, and really be like, you know what? This was so necessary. This was so necessary. Let me tell you something. For a few years, how do I word this? Like, I thought all of my strength came from my masculine energy, my masculine. And it was funny because I actually believed that my masculine energy was 100% healthy. And when I actually started sitting and looking at scenarios that were grinding me down, that were irritating me, that were causing me to crash and burn, I really had to get to the point where I was like, I finally ran diagnostics, right? We run the diagnostics and you're like, fuck, yo. I thought I was operating at 80, 90% when I was operating at only 25%, right? When I used to have a Beamer, and it was cool because when I went to take it, they had these machines that would tell me, you know, what the capacity, the percentage that the shit was operating on. And sometimes you'd run the diagnostics and you'd be like, do you realize that you was riding around here on 20%, on 10%, on 5% capacity? Do you realize how much danger you were putting yourself in doing so? A lot of people don't realize that they are not operating out of their highest strength. They feel like just because they have a small grip, that it's the most potent grip that they have. And so a lot of us are riding around right now thinking we have a grip, thinking we're operating out of our highest strength, but you are actually riding around on 5% and you're grinding your gears. And if you're feeling that irritation, listen to it. Test the mechanics, run the diagnostics, sit down for a second, right? Just sit down for a second and ask yourself, how intentional am I being right now? If I'm not feeling 100% the happiest I could be in my delight, in my, like, even if you're not feeling clear, okay? Oh, I want to grab this book. Oh, Well, damn. That was not good. Look. We're just gonna have to do it like that. Okay. We're gonna pull open from The Confident Woman by Joyce Meyer. We're gonna see what the message comes up in relation to this. I don't really feel to talk much longer. I try to not make these too long out, too drawn right now. What do we need to know in regards to this message? Master it. David was much afraid of Achish, king of Gath, and he changed his behavior before them and pretended to be insane in their hands and scribbled on the gate doors and drooled on his beard. Fear torments and prevents progress and can develop from seemingly endless sources. It causes people who should be bold and aggressive to shrink back, to hide and be cowardly and timid. Fear is a thief. It steals our destinies. What we run from or hide from has power over us. The only acceptable attitude we should have toward fear is, I will not fear. Each of us must be firm in our resolve, and we will not allow fear to rule in our lives. There is far too much at stake to take a light attitude towards this huge problem. Confrontation is extremely difficult for many people, but it must be done unless we want other people and other things to control our lives. The best way to overcome anything is to expose it. Anything hidden has power over us, but once it is brought into the light, it can be dealt with and overcome. Always remember when Franklin Roosevelt once pointed out, the one thing we must fear is fear itself, for if we allow it to, it will control us. If we confront it, we will master it. Say it out loud, I will not fear. God, I hate what fear does to me. I am sick of how it steals from my potential and torments me into shrinking back. I will not allow it to control me any longer. Amen. So the point that really sticks out to me the most is the best way to overcome anything is to expose it. Anything hidden has power over us, but once it is brought into the light, it can be dealt with and overcome. It really made me think about what I said about really taking your shit and busting it open, popping the hood, running the diagnostics, running the mechanics, and exposing the problem to get to the bottom of it. You riding around fearing what it could be is going to put you in a situation where that fear eventually is going to control you, because if you don't expose what the problem is underlying, that shit is going to wreck you and crash you, and you're going to put yourself in a bigger predicament, all because out of fear you were afraid to surrender. Strength comes in surrender. Strength comes from being capable to let down your resistance and to open up. A lot of us right now are afraid to let down our resistance because we think that we know it all about ourselves, right? And we're not getting to the point where we're either being real with ourselves and really counseling ourselves on a humble level, or humbly taking ourselves to people who have an expertise to help us move past some of these things that we really need to. You know, when I initiated the end of April and I sat down and we did my readings were actually pretty light because I'd done a lot of work, but a lot of the things that came up were reiterations of things that I already know, that already were consuming me before. And it was saying, if you will continue to allow X, Y, and Z to consume you, it will destroy you. So, if you're riding around right now and you're irritated because you can hear your brakes are grinding. When I say your brakes, I mean your spiritual. In your spiritual, you're feeling like you're okay? Don't be fearful to get clarity by getting to the bottom of it. Letting down that resistance, because the more you ride around tapping on them motherfuckers like this, little by little, you're going from 80% to 70% to 60% to 50% to the point where you will grind yourself to metal on metal, and then it's going to be disastrous and you're going to crash. Master the fear. The only way to master your fears is to face them. I myself created a lot of dark feminine templates in my life in order to survive. Everything that scared me, I created an avatar to become bigger and scarier than everything that scared the little girl and the true divine feminine in me. But to the point where that side of me was becoming a problem and it was consuming me. So instead of allowing yourself to create something that consumes you, you learn to confront the things that you're scared of and master them so that you can continue to manifest what it is that you wish to do so on this plane, and that you can ascend and not descend and take yourself further down when you have all the capacity to move further up. Ashe. 35 minutes. I feel good about 35 minutes, okay? I don't, you know, sometimes, you know, less is more. Less is more. So, with that being said, let's close with a little meditation. And I feel it's more in here. I feel like we have to allow ourselves not to get clouded, okay, by confusion. A lot of times, we need to surrender and stop being so resistant in our egos, right? Because the ego, I feel like the ego lives in the head a lot of times. And it creates a lot of fear out of confusion. And so I feel like we have to ask, you know, Spirit, as the collective, we're asking for the ability to be intentional, to be mindful, to be conscious, to be able to clear our confusion, clear our irritations, of anything that we need to make sure that we can get to the bottom of so that it doesn't allow us to crash and burn, descend to the bottom. Allow us to be humble, allow us to surrender, allow us to not resist when we need to get to the bottom of something, get to the bottom of why our mechanics are working the way they are, to the bottom of why the diagnostics might need to be maneuvered so that we don't end up in disaster, that we can continue to move forward towards destiny, that we can continue to move forward towards the things that we are truly destined for. And we're not destined for fear. We're not destined to live in fear. We're destined to master it. We're destined to move in faith, that we can be fruitful, that we can allow these energies within us, masculine and feminine, to be in balance in the divine essence of what they are supposed to be, and not be in the dark templates of which hold us slavery. A lot of the fear that we move in is a slavery template. A slavery template. A lot of the dark energies that we move in, they're fear-based, they're slavery-based, and we cannot allow them to consume us, to master us anymore. We have to learn how to master them, and the only way to master them is to confront them, okay? Please give us the strength, this moon period, to do so, and allow us to move forward, to put these things to rest so that we can continue to ascend to new levels, so that we can operate in higher capacities, to produce new things, to produce purer things for our life that are not fueled from our resistance, not fueled from our fear, not fueled from our anger, sadness, or ego. Okay? Ashe. All right, y'all. If you want to work with me, like I said, go ahead, shoot me an email. A lot of people hover, hover over the button for a really long time. If you have concerns about the sessions in advance, that you want to ask something, feel free to do so. You can email me, thetrapwitch@gmail.com. But if you are ready to book, go ahead, go to my website, like I said, thetrapwitch.com. Press book. The sessions are on there, and once you have finished paying for your session, you can just feel free to send me an email for scheduling. All the directions are on there. You shouldn't have a problem navigating it too much. It's pretty straightforward. So I wish you all a happy new moon. May you finally, get to the point where You're not grinding on your gears, and you just finally get to the point where you're like, you know what? This diagnosis was so necessary, because I have to be really intentional about how I'm driving, how I'm steering, how I'm doing this, so that I don't cause myself disaster out of misintention. Okay? I love you all. Be blessed, be prosperous. Okay? Bye.